Times that appeared a week ago Thursday, and I quote, "A week before the long-term bailout was negotiated at the headquarters of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Alan Greenspan, the Fed chairman, testified to Congress that bankers knew exactly what they were doing in the policing of hedge funds and their attendant risks. On September 16th, he assured Representative Richard Baker, Republican of Louisiana, that risk in hedge fund lending was well under control." I guess that was 1 week before the bailout. Mr. Chairman, Alan Greenspan is here with us today, along with Mr. McDonough, and we expect that they're going to explain to the members of this committee why the global economy remains unstable, why the Federal Reserve has organized the $3.5 billion bailout for billionaires, why Americans should be worried about the gambling practices of the Wall Street elites. In my state, people buy a dollar lotto, but they don't usually invest hundreds of millions of dollars in these types of gambling practices. Now, let me begin by quoting from a recent op-ed piece in the Washington Post by James Glassman, picking up on a point that Mr. Backus just made. Quote, "In America today, there's a double standard." I should point out Mr. Glassman is a conservative. "A rule that applies to welfare mothers doesn't apply to politically connected corporations, rich speculators, and irresponsible nations. Over and over again, when powerful people and institutions get in trouble, the government bails them out." End of quote. Not when family farmers get in trouble, not when small business people get in trouble, not when poor people get in trouble, but I guess to get government assistance or the help of the feds, you got to be a multi-billionaire gambler. Now, let's take a moment to understand what in fact has been happening. What we have here, so far as I can understand, is a man by the name of John Meriwether, who went to some of the largest banks in America and asked for $100 billion in loans to gamble on whether income rates would increase or decrease. Like any gambler you might find in Las Vegas, Mr. Meriwether, after several years of success, I should say, apparently went too far. He gambled himself into a situation where one company lost, his own company lost some $90 billion, and according to the New York Times, this hedge fund's speculation topped $1.2 trillion. Now, what is $1.2 trillion? It's an astronomical sum of money. It is close to what the budget of the United States government is for 1 year. That's what we're talking about. This is one man whose actions and poor judgment could cause economic catastrophe throughout the entire world, one person. Now, we hear a lot about crony capitalism in Russia, crony capitalism in South Korea and in Indonesia. Chairman Greenspan, I hope in your testimony today that you will talk about crony capitalism in America, about one man's investment threatening the entire economic stability of the globe. What we have here are banks that are willing to lend billions of dollars to one man so that he could gamble on whether interest rates go up by 0.5% or whether they go down by 0.5%. But meanwhile, these are the very same banks that refuse to loan money for economic development and job creation in communities all over America. Evidently, there is not enough money from these banks to invest in job-creating small business, in job-creating family farming, in job-creating manufacturing, but there is unlimited amounts of money to be lent to gamblers in their non-productive efforts to guess if interest rates will rise or fall. Mr. Chairman, there are changes taking place all over this planet. You will note that recently in Germany there was an election in which conservatives lost. A year ago there was an election in France where conservatives lost. 2 years ago there was an election in Great Britain where conservatives lost. All over Europe and throughout the world, there is growing doubts about the sensibility of the Thatcher, Reagan, if I might add, Greenspan approach to economic development. An approach which says that it is okay for a couple of hundred billionaires throughout the world to own more wealth than the bottom 45% of the world's population. An approach which says that it's okay in the United States for one man to own more wealth than the bottom 100 million Americans. So I think the good news is that Europe is beginning to wake up that this laissez-faire type of approach, where let's knock down all barriers, let's oppose minimum wages, let's oppose national health care programs, let's oppose any action that helps working people and poor people. That's bad. But let's give the billionaires the opportunity to make more and more and more money so that we have a situation where one man can have an influence over $1.25 trillion, and truth of the matter is nobody has a clue what's going on, and Mr. Greenspan, a week before the collapse, says that the banks know what they're doing. So I would suggest that this issue today deals not only with this hedge fund, but our entire approach to the global economy, where so few people own so much wealth and have so much power, where the IMF is running dozens and dozens of countries throughout the world. And I think we had better learn from Europe's recent elections and start rethinking this entire approach to the global economy. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Castle.